Emma Sullivan froze mid-step on her farmhouse porch, the security camera footage still glowing on her phone screen. Her coffee mug slipped from trembling fingers, shattering against the wooden boards below. The timestamp read 3:47 a.m. every night for the past 4 months. Luna wasn't sleeping in her bed like Emma believed. The German Shepherd mix had been sitting in the corner of Emma's bedroom, perfectly still, watching her sleep with those amber eyes that seemed to glow in the infrared footage. Mrs. Henderson's scream from next door shattered the morning silence, followed by the crash of her trash cans hitting the driveway. "That thing killed my cat!" she shrieked. Emma's hand flew to her throat, remembering how peaceful she'd felt these past months, how safe and protected. Her grandmother's voice echoed from childhood. "Sometimes the thing you trust most is the thing that's hunting you, honey." She had to see Luna. Now, who was the real predator here? Leave a like and share your thoughts in the comments along with the city you're watching from now. Let's continue with the story. 6 months earlier, Emma Sullivan had been a different woman entirely. At 34, she sat in the empty farmhouse she'd inherited from grandmother Rose, surrounded by divorce papers and medical bills that painted a stark picture of her shattered life. The endometriosis had stolen her chance at children. The divorce had taken everything else. "Honey, this old place has been waiting for someone who needs healing," Rose had whispered during her final hospital visit. "Promise me you'll go there when the world gets too heavy." Emma had nodded through tears, never imagining she'd need that refuge so desperately. The farmhouse sat on 15 acres of Oregon countryside, 2 hours from Portland's chaos. Rose had lived here for 60 years, raising chickens and tending a garden that still bloomed wild with neglect. Emma's grandmother had always possessed an uncanny ability to read people and animals alike. "Some folks are born to nurture broken things back to wholeness," she used to say, her weathered hands gentle with wounded birds and stray cats. Emma's bank account showed $127.43. The morning everything changed. Her divorce lawyer's final bill sat unopened on the kitchen table beside a stack of medical invoices. The settlement had been pathetic. Her ex-husband's gambling debts had consumed most of their assets. She'd kept the farmhouse only because it was solely in her name, inherited before their marriage. The silence in the house was deafening. Empty bedrooms that should have held children's laughter. A dining table set for one. Even her reflection in the hallway mirror looked hollow, her auburn hair limp and lifeless, green eyes that once sparkled now dull with grief. She'd lost 20 pounds since the divorce, her clothes hanging loose on her small frame. "Doctor?" Marcus Thompson had been the family veterinarian for decades, treating Rose's animals with professional competence but little warmth. A stern man of 45 with graying temples and cold blue eyes, he'd taken over the practice from his father. Emma remembered him from childhood visits, always efficient, rarely smiling. Rose had often muttered that some people love animals because they can't love people, though she'd never elaborated. Mrs. Henderson, the 78-year-old neighbor, lived in the closest house, a quarter-mile through the pine trees. She'd been Rose's friend for 40 years, bringing casseroles and gossip in equal measure. Her arthritic hands still tended to prize winning roses, and her sharp tongue could cut glass when provoked. "Your grandmother was special," she'd told Emma at the funeral. "Had a gift with creatures that needed saving." "Hope you inherited some of that magic, dear." The October rain drummed against the farmhouse windows as Emma sat at Rose's old oak table, staring at the final notice from the electric company. 60 days to pay or lose power. She pressed her forehead against the cool wood, breathing in the faint scent of her grandmother's lavender soap that still lingered in the grain. Outside, the wind howled through the pine trees, carrying with it the promise of change and the distant cry of something lost in the darkness. The storm hit Portland with unusual fury that October night, turning country roads into rivers and sending Emma's power flickering like a dying candle. She'd fallen asleep on Rose's old couch, wrapped in her grandmother's patchwork quilt, when the crying started. At first, she thought it was the wind, a high, keening sound that seemed to pierce straight through the farmhouse walls. But as consciousness fully returned, Emma realized the sound was too rhythmic, too desperate to be weather. Something was crying outside her door. Lightning illuminated the front porch in stark, white flashes as Emma peered through the window. There, huddled against the wooden railing, was a small, dark shape no bigger than a loaf of bread. A puppy, soaked to the bone and shivering violently in the driving rain. "Oh, you poor baby," Emma whispered, her heart clenching with recognition. She knew that kind of abandonment, the desperate, bone-deep loneliness that made you cry out for anyone who might listen. The moment she opened the door, those eyes locked onto hers, not the typical brown or blue of most dogs, but an unusual amber that seemed to glow in the porch light. The puppy couldn't have been more than 8 weeks old, with fur so dark it was almost black, and oversized paws that promised significant growth ahead. "Where did you come from, little one?" Emma knelt down, extending her hand slowly. The puppy approached without fear, pressing its small body against her palm with surprising trust. Its fur was surprisingly thick, despite being waterlogged, and there was something about its facial structure, more angular than most puppies, with a longer snout and ears that stood alert despite the storm. Emma scooped the shivering creature into her arms, feeling its rapid heartbeat against her chest. "You're safe now," she murmured, the words coming automatically. It had been months since she'd spoken with such tenderness to anything living. Inside the warmth of the farmhouse, Emma wrapped the puppy in one of Rose's old towels, marveling at how perfectly it fit in her lap. She warmed milk in a saucepan, something she remembered Rose doing for orphaned kittens, and watched as the little creature lapped it up with desperate hunger. "Luna," she said suddenly, the name appearing in her mind, unbidden. "That's what I'll call you. You showed up in the darkest hour, like the moon breaking through storm clouds." Luna's response was immediate, those amber eyes fixed on Emma's face with an intensity that seemed almost human. Most puppies that age were easily distracted, but Luna watched Emma with unwavering focus, as if memorizing every detail of her rescuer's appearance. The first week passed in a blur of newfound purpose. Emma found herself setting alarms to feed Luna every few hours, just as she would have done for a human baby. The irony wasn't lost on her. After years of failed attempts at motherhood, a stray puppy had awakened every maternal instinct she possessed. Luna grew with startling speed. Within days, she'd doubled in size, and her coordination improved dramatically. But it was her intelligence that truly amazed Emma. While most puppies were clumsy and unfocused, Luna seemed to understand complex commands after hearing them just once. She never had accidents in the house, instinctively knowing to scratch at the door when nature called. "You're special, aren't you?" Emma would whisper during their evening bonding sessions. Luna would tilt her head at precisely the right angle, as if she truly understood not just the words but their emotional weight. The strange behaviors started small. Emma would wake to find Luna sitting perfectly still in the corner of her bedroom, those amber eyes reflecting the moonlight streaming through the windows. When Emma stirred, Luna would immediately trot over to the bed, tail wagging as if she'd been sleeping the whole time. During the day, Luna exhibited an unusual fascination with the windows. She would position herself at different vantage points throughout the house, watching the tree line with an alertness that seemed beyond her age. When Emma worked on her laptop, struggling to find freelance graphic design jobs, Luna would lie nearby, but always facing the doors and windows rather than Emma herself. The financial pressure mounted daily. Emma's savings account dwindled to double digits as she bought puppy food, toys, and scheduled a veterinary appointment. Her divorce lawyer called twice, demanding payment for outstanding fees. The electricity bill arrived with a second notice stamped in red ink. But Luna's presence transformed the suffocating silence of the farmhouse into something bearable. For the first time since her world collapsed, Emma had a reason to get up each morning. Someone depended on her completely, trusted her unconditionally, and asked for nothing but love in return. It was exactly what her broken heart needed, or so she believed, unaware that Luna's vigilant watching served a purpose far more complex than simple puppy curiosity. By Luna's 6th week in the farmhouse, Emma could no longer ignore the peculiarities that had begun as charming quirks. The puppy had grown exponentially, now reaching Emma's mid-thigh when standing on her hind legs. Her paws were massive, easily twice the size of any dog Emma had ever seen, and her facial features had sharpened into something more angular and predatory. "Well, I'll be damned," Dr. Marcus Thompson muttered as he examined Luna on the cold steel table of his veterinary clinic. His weathered hands moved with practiced efficiency, but Emma noticed how his jaw tightened as he studied Luna's teeth. "This isn't a typical dog, Emma. Look at these canines. They're already longer than most adult German shepherds." Emma's stomach clenched. "What are you saying?" Dr. Thompson's pale blue eyes met hers with an expression she couldn't quite read. "I'm saying this animal has wolf heritage. Significant wolf heritage." He gestured to Luna's skull structure. The elongated snout, the ear positioning, the jaw strength, these are classic wolf characteristics. Where exactly did you find her? "She was abandoned on my porch during that storm 6 weeks ago," Emma said defensively, instinctively moving closer to Luna. "She was just a baby, terrified and alone." "Wolves don't abandon their young unless something terrible has happened to the pack," Dr. Thompson said, his voice carrying an edge Emma had never heard before. "This animal could be dangerous as she matures. Wolf hybrids are unpredictable. They can turn on their owners without warning." Luna, as if sensing the tension in the room, pressed against Emma's leg and looked up at her with those luminous amber eyes. The gesture was so purely trusting that Emma felt her protective instincts flare. "She's not dangerous," Emma said firmly. "Luna is gentle and loving. She's never shown even a hint of aggression." Dr. Thompson's expression darkened. "That's what they all say, right up until someone gets hurt." He scribbled something on his clipboard with more force than necessary. "Legally, I'm required to report suspected wolf hybrids to the State Wildlife Authority. They'll want to inspect your property and determine if you're properly equipped to house a potentially dangerous animal." The drive home passed in tense silence, Luna sitting calmly in the passenger seat with her head out the window, apparently unbothered by the life-altering conversation that had just taken place. Emma's hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles went white. 30 days, she whispered to herself, remembering Dr. Thompson's parting words. 30 days to prove I can handle you properly, or they'll take you away. Back at the farmhouse, Emma called her grandmother's old friend Margaret, who had raised working dogs for 40 years. Margaret's gravelly voice crackled through the phone line, seasoned by decades of cigarettes and country living. "Honey, wolf dogs aren't pets," Margaret said bluntly. "They're wild animals playing house. Your grandmother, God rest her soul, would have recognized what you've got there. Rose always said some creatures are too wild to tame and too loyal to abandon." "But Luna isn't wild," Emma protested, watching as the subject of their conversation lay peacefully by the fireplace. "She's protective and intelligent, but she's never hurt anyone." "Yet," Margaret added ominously, What happens when her prey drive kicks in? What happens when she reaches sexual maturity and her hormones start raging? You living out there all alone? It's not safe, Emma. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She lay in bed listening to the familiar sounds of the old farmhouse settling when she became aware of something else, a presence in her room. Rolling over slowly, she saw Luna sitting in the far corner, completely motionless, watching her with those glowing amber eyes. "Luna?" Emma whispered. "What are you doing, girl?" Luna's tail thumped once against the floor, but she didn't move from her position. In the moonlight streaming through the window, her silhouette looked larger, more imposing than Emma remembered. The realization hit her like a physical blow. How long had Luna been watching her sleep? The financial implications crashed down on Emma the next morning. A quick internet search revealed the staggering costs of properly housing a wolf hybrid. Specialized fencing, $15,000, permits and inspections, $5,000. Liability insurance, $3,000 annually, and potential fines up to $50,000 for illegal wildlife possession. Her bank account balance of $73.42 mocked these figures. Emma sat at her grandmother's kitchen table, surrounded by bills and legal documents, feeling the walls of her new life closing in. Luna lay at her feet, occasionally nudging Emma's hand with her massive head, a gesture that had once brought comfort but now carried undertones of something Emma couldn't quite name. The breaking point came when Mrs. Henderson called, her voice shaking with indignation. "Emma, dear, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but my prize-winning roses have been destroyed, dug up from the roots. And yesterday, I found feathers all over my yard. My poor chickens are terrified to leave their coop." Mrs. Henderson's voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "I saw that animal of yours prowling around my property at dawn. Those aren't the actions of a house pet, honey. That's a predator marking territory." Emma's heart sank as she looked out the window toward Mrs. Henderson's property. Sure enough, she could see disturbed earth where the prized rose garden had been, and scattered white feathers caught in the fence line. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Henderson. I'll repair any damage." "It's not about the damage, dear. It's about safety. That creature is getting bigger and bolder every day. What happens when it decides my old bones look like a threat to its territory?" After hanging up, Emma found herself truly looking at Luna for the first time in weeks. The animal that gazed back at her was no longer the helpless puppy she'd rescued. Luna had grown into something magnificent and slightly terrifying, nearly 60 pounds of muscle and instinct, with eyes that seemed to calculate every movement Emma made. The question Dr. Thompson had planted began to take root. Was she Luna's rescuer, or had she become something else entirely? The security camera had been Emma's attempt at peace of mind. After Mrs. Henderson's call about the destroyed roses and scattered feathers, Emma installed a basic system she could barely afford. $200 that left her with less than $50 to her name. She told herself it would prove Luna's innocence, document that her beloved companion was just a misunderstood dog with unusual heritage. What the footage revealed shattered every assumption she'd held about their relationship. Emma discovered the truth at 6:23 a.m. on a Thursday, scrolling through the previous night's recordings while her coffee grew cold. There, in grainy infrared, was Luna at 3:47 a.m., not sleeping peacefully in her bed as Emma had believed, but sitting statue still in the corner of Emma's bedroom. The timestamp showed this behavior occurred every single night, for hours at a time, those amber eyes fixed unblinkingly on Emma's sleeping form. "Sweet Jesus," Emma whispered, her grandmother's favorite exclamation slipping out unbidden. Her hands trembled as she scrolled through weeks of footage, night after night the same scene. Luna maintaining her vigil, occasionally moving to different vantage points around the house, always watching, always alert. The kitchen recordings were even more disturbing. Luna systematically moved through the house during Emma's deepest sleep, checking windows, testing doors, positioning herself at strategic points that offered clear views of all approaches to the farmhouse. This wasn't random wandering, it was methodical surveillance. Mrs. Henderson's scream from next door pierced the morning air like a gunshot. Emma ran outside to find her elderly neighbor, standing over what remained of her beloved cat, Whiskers. The orange tabby lay motionless beside the fence line, its neck clearly broken. "That monster killed my cat, Mrs." Henderson shrieked, pointing a shaking finger toward Luna, who had appeared silently at Emma's side. "I saw it happen! That thing stalked poor Whiskers like he was prey!" Emma's world tilted sideways. Luna sat calmly beside her, tongue lolling out in what looked like contentment. But Emma noticed something that made her stomach clench. A small tuft of orange fur caught on Luna's lower jaw. "Mrs. Henderson, I'm so sorry," Emma began, but her neighbor cut her off with surprising vehemence. "Sorry doesn't bring back my Whiskers. That animal is a killer, Emma, a predator, and you're harboring it like it's some kind of pet." Mrs. Henderson's voice cracked with grief and fury. "Your grandmother would be ashamed." Rose knew the difference between creatures that could be saved and creatures that were beyond redemption. The words hit Emma like physical blows. Mrs. Henderson had never spoken harshly about Rose. The two women had been dear friends for 4 decades. If she was invoking Rose's memory, she meant every word. Dr. Thompson arrived within an hour of Mrs. Henderson's call to animal control. His face was grim as he examined the scene, taking photographs and making notes with the efficiency of someone who'd seen this before. "The attack pattern is consistent with the large predator," he told Emma, his voice professionally neutral but his eyes cold with something that might have been satisfaction. "The prey was stalked, isolated, and killed with a single bite to the cervical vertebrae. This isn't the behavior of a domestic dog defending territory. This is hunting behavior." Emma felt the weight of his words settling over her like a suffocating blanket. "But Luna's never shown aggression toward me. She's protective, yes, but not violent." "Pack animals distinguish between pack members and prey," Dr. Thompson explained, his tone taking on a lecturing quality that made Emma's skin crawl. "You're not in danger because you're her alpha. But everything else, every other living creature in her territory is potential prey or threat to be eliminated." He gestured toward Luna, who had positioned herself between Emma and the veterinarian, her body language subtly aggressive despite her calm expression. "Look at her posture right now. She's evaluating me as a threat. Those aren't the instincts of a pet, Emma. Those are the instincts of a wild predator." The state wildlife inspector arrived the next morning, a weathered woman named Sarah Crawford who'd spent 20 years dealing with exotic animal situations. She walked the property with practiced eyes, documenting every detail while Luna shadowed their movements from a distance. "Your fencing is inadequate," Crawford said bluntly, clipboard in hand. "A determined wolf hybrid could clear these barriers without effort. Your containment protocols are non-existent, and you have no emergency response plan if the animal becomes aggressive." Emma's heart sank as Crawford continued her assessment. "The financial requirements for proper wolf hybrid housing exceed $30,000 in initial setup costs, plus ongoing annual expenses of approximately $8,000. Do you have those resources available?" "I'm working on it," Emma lied, knowing her bank account couldn't cover even a fraction of those costs. Crawford's expression softened slightly. "I can see you care about this animal, but caring isn't enough. The state requires proof of adequate facilities within 30 days, or the animal will be relocated to a licensed wildlife sanctuary." That evening, Emma sat in her grandmother's rocking chair, staring at Luna, who lay by the fireplace like any normal dog. But Emma couldn't unsee what the cameras had revealed. The calculated watching, the systematic patrols, the predatory efficiency that had ended Whisker's life. "What am I supposed to do, Rose?" Emma whispered to the empty room, her voice breaking. "I can't afford to keep her properly, but I can't bear to lose her either." As if summoned by her distress, Luna rose and approached the chair. But instead of the comforting nuzzle Emma expected, Luna positioned herself facing the front door, ears erect and body tense. A low growl rumbled in her throat, the first truly aggressive sound Emma had ever heard her make. Seconds later, Emma heard what Luna had detected first, the crunch of gravel in her driveway. Headlights swept across the windows as an unfamiliar vehicle approached the farmhouse. Emma's pulse quickened as she realized it was nearly midnight. Who would visit at such an hour? Luna's growl intensified, and Emma noticed the way her companion's muscles bunched beneath her fur, ready to spring into action. In that moment, Emma understood with crystal clarity that Luna wasn't just watching her sleep out of curiosity or affection. Luna was standing guard. The vehicle stopped, but no one got out. Emma could see a figure behind the wheel, but the darkness obscured any details. After several minutes that felt like hours, the engine started again and the car backed out of the driveway, disappearing into the night. Luna maintained her vigilant position for another 20 minutes before finally relaxing. Only then did she approach Emma, pressing her massive head against Emma's trembling hands. "You were protecting me," Emma realized aloud. "All this time you weren't watching me. You were watching over me." The revelation reframed everything. The nocturnal surveillance, the territorial behavior, even the killing of Mrs. Henderson's cat. It all made sense if viewed through the lens of protection rather than predation. Luna had identified threats and eliminated them, following instincts that prioritized Emma's safety above all else. But this understanding brought new terror. If Luna felt the need to maintain such constant vigilance, what did she sense that Emma couldn't? What dangers lurked beyond the edges of Emma's awareness that required a wolf's instincts to detect? Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Stop looking out the window. I see you watching." Luna's growl resumed immediately, and Emma realized with cold certainty that her mysterious midnight visitor hadn't been a random occurrence. Someone had been watching her house, and Luna had been watching back. Dr. Thompson's words echoed in her mind. Pack animals distinguish between pack members and prey. Emma had assumed she was Luna's pack, but now she wondered if the reality was more complex. Perhaps she wasn't Luna's owner at all. Perhaps she was Luna's charge, a vulnerable member of a two-creature pack that a powerful predator had sworn to protect. The financial pressure mounted as Emma's final utility notice arrived the next morning, stamped in red. "Service will be discontinued in 72 hours. Her laptop battery was dying and she couldn't afford to replace it. Her freelance graphic design work had dwindled to nothing as she'd become consumed with Luna's care and the mounting legal complications. Mrs. Henderson's petition began circulating through the rural community, demanding Luna's immediate removal. Emma found herself isolated not just financially, but socially. Neighbors who had once waved from their driveways now crossed the road to avoid her property. But as Emma sat in her grandmother's kitchen, surrounded by bills she couldn't pay and threats she couldn't fight, Luna performed her nightly routine of checking doors and windows. The wolf hybrid moved with purpose and intelligence, ensuring their small sanctuary remained secure against whatever dangers the darkness might hold. For the first time since the security footage revelation, Emma felt a glimmer of gratitude rather than fear. Whatever Luna was, pet, guardian, or something more complex, she had chosen to dedicate her formidable abilities to keeping Emma safe. The question was whether Emma would have the courage to trust that protection, or whether the pressure from authorities and neighbors would force her to abandon the one creature who had never abandoned her. The confrontation Emma had been dreading came on a cold November morning when she found Dr. Thompson's truck parked in her driveway beside a white van marked Oregon State Wildlife Division. Through her kitchen window, she watched three officials examining her property with clipboards and cameras, their expressions professionally grim. Luna positioned herself between Emma and the front door, hackles raised in a way that made her appear twice her normal size. The low rumble emanating from her throat carried a warning that needed no translation. "It's okay, girl," Emma whispered, though her own hand shook as she opened the door. "Let's see what they want." Dr. Thompson stepped forward, flanked by Inspector Crawford and a man Emma didn't recognize. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the weathered look of someone who'd spent decades working with dangerous animals. "Emma, this is Detective Ray Morrison," Dr. Thompson said, his voice carrying an authority that set Emma's teeth on edge. "He specializes in exotic animal incidents. We need to discuss Luna's future." Detective Morrison's eyes never left Luna as he spoke. "Ma'am, we've received multiple complaints about your animal's behavior. Property damage, livestock harassment, and now the death of a neighbor's pet. We have grounds for immediate removal." Luna was protecting her territory, Emma said, hating how defensive she sounded. "That's natural behavior for any dog." "This isn't a dog," Dr. Thompson interjected sharply. "Blood work from her last visit confirms significant wolf genetics. She's a hybrid, Emma, and a dangerous one. Her jaw strength alone could crush a child's skull." Emma felt the words like physical blows. "Luna has never threatened a child. She's never threatened anyone except—" "Except what?" Detective Morrison pressed, stepping closer. Luna's growl intensified, and Emma noticed how the three men instinctively shifted their weight, hands moving toward equipment on their belts. Emma's mind raced. She couldn't tell them about the mysterious midnight visitor, the threatening text message, the sense that Luna was protecting her from something specific. It would sound paranoid, delusional, exactly what they expected from someone who'd bonded unhealthily with a dangerous animal. "She's protective of me," Emma finished weakly. "That's normal for any loyal pet." Inspector Crawford consulted her paperwork. "According to our assessment, you lack proper containment facilities, adequate insurance, and the financial resources to maintain a wolf hybrid legally. We're issuing a seizure order effective immediately." The words hit Emma like a physical assault. "No, please, you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Dr. Thompson said, and there was something in his tone that made Emma look at him sharply. His pale eyes held a cold satisfaction that seemed disproportionate to the situation. "I've seen this before. People who think they can tame wild animals, who ignore every warning until someone gets hurt. Your grandmother was the same way, always taking in strays that should have been put down." Emma's breath caught. "Don't you dare talk about my grandmother. Rose Sullivan enabled dangerous animals for 60 years, Dr. Thompson continued, his voice rising with unexpected venom. "She had no business encouraging people to take risks with creatures that belong in the wild or in graves." Detective Morrison shot Dr. Thompson a warning look, but the veterinarian was beyond restraint now. "I won't stand by and watch another family destroyed because someone couldn't accept reality about a dangerous animal." The slip was subtle, but Emma caught it. "Another family?" Dr. Thompson's face went white, realizing he'd revealed more than intended. Inspector Crawford and Detective Morrison exchanged glances, and Emma sensed currents of tension she didn't understand. "Dr. Thompson lost his brother in a wildlife incident years ago," Detective Morrison said carefully. "It's made him particularly cautious about exotic animal situations." "Cautious?" Emma's protective instincts flared. "Or biased?" Dr. Thompson's jaw tightened. "My personal experiences don't change the facts." That animal is dangerous, and you're not equipped to handle her. End of discussion. Luna had been growing increasingly agitated throughout the conversation, her body language shifting from defensive to actively threatening. Emma noticed how the wolf hybrid positioned herself to cut off the men's retreat to their vehicles, a tactical move that spoke to intelligence far beyond typical canine behavior. "Ma'am, we need you to secure your animal so we can proceed with the removal," Detective Morrison said, his hand now resting openly on what Emma realized was a tranquilizer gun. "You're not taking her," Emma said, surprised by the steel in her own voice. "Luna stays with me." "That's not your choice anymore," Inspector Crawford said sadly. "The seizure order is legally binding. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. But that animal is coming with us." Emma's world narrowed to this moment. 3 strangers trying to take away the only creature that had shown her unconditional loyalty since her life fell apart. Luna seemed to sense the stakes, her growl deepening to a sound that raised primitive fear responses in everyone present. "Easy, girl," Emma whispered, but she could see Luna's pupils dilating, her breathing becoming rapid and shallow. The wolf hybrid was preparing for a fight. Dr. Thompson pulled out a long pole with a noose attachment, the kind used for aggressive animal control. "We'll sedate her first, then transport her to the state facility. She'll be more comfortable that way." Emma's grandmother's voice echoed in her memory. "Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is trust the creature that trusts you, even when the whole world says you're wrong." "No," Emma said firmly, stepping between Luna and the men. "You'll have to go through me first." Detective Morrison's expression hardened. "Ma'am, you're interfering with a legal seizure. That's obstruction of justice." "Then arrest me," Emma shot back. "But you're not taking Luna." The standoff stretched taut as a wire. Luna pressed against Emma's legs, and Emma could feel the tension in her powerful muscles, the barely contained violence that could explode at any moment. But there was something else. Luna was waiting for Emma's signal, following her lead rather than acting on predatory instinct. "Think about what you're doing," Dr. Thompson said, his voice taking on a pleading quality that didn't match his earlier authority. "When that animal finally snaps, and it will snap, the blood will be on your hands. I've seen what wolves can do to human beings, Emma. I've seen the aftermath." Emma studied his face, seeing past the professional concern to something rawer underneath. "What really happened to your brother, Dr. Thompson?" The veterinarian's composure cracked completely. "He was 15. We were camping in the Cascades, and a pack of wolves attacked our campsite. I tried to fight them off, but there were too many. I had to watch them tear him apart while I hid in a tree like a coward." The confession hung in the air like a physical presence. Inspector Crawford and Detective Morrison looked uncomfortable, clearly hearing details they hadn't known before. "I'm sorry for your loss," Emma said quietly. "But Luna isn't those wolves. She's not responsible for what happened to your brother." "Isn't she?" Dr. Thompson's voice cracked. "She's got the same blood, the same instincts. How long before she decides you're not her pack anymore? How long before those protective instincts turn predatory?" Emma felt Luna shift against her legs, and for a moment doubt crept in. The wolf hybrid was so large now, so powerful, with jaws that could indeed crush bones. But then Luna did something that surprised everyone. She sat down and offered her paw to Emma, the way she'd been taught during their first week together. The gesture was purely domestic, purely trusting. Luna was choosing submission over aggression, even with strangers threatening her freedom. "She's not a killer," Emma said, her voice strengthening with conviction. "She's my family." Detective Morrison seemed to struggle with the situation. "Ma'am, regardless of your feelings, the law is clear. We have authority to remove dangerous exotic animals from inappropriate housing situations." Emma's phone buzzed with a text message. Without thinking, she glanced at the screen and felt her blood freeze. The unknown number from the previous night had sent a photo, a long-range shot of her farmhouse with the 3 official vehicles in the driveway. "They're distracted," the message read. Perfect timing. Luna's hackles rose even higher, and she turned toward the tree line with a focus that made everyone follow her gaze. Emma realized with sick certainty that their confrontation was being observed by whoever had been stalking her property. "We need to get inside," Emma said urgently. "All of us, right now." Detective Morrison frowned. "Ma'am, we're not—" The first gunshot shattered the morning silence. The gunshot sent everyone diving for cover behind the vehicles. Emma's heart hammered against her ribs as she pressed herself against the cold metal of Dr. Thompson's truck. Luna crouched beside her with every muscle coiled for action. The wolf hybrid's amber eyes scanned the tree line with predatory focus, tracking movement Emma couldn't see. "Everyone stay down!" Detective Morrison shouted, drawing his service weapon. "Crawford, radio for backup!" A second shot rang out, this one closer, splintering the wooden post of Emma's mailbox. Dr. Thompson scrambled behind the wildlife van, his face pale with terror. "What the hell is happening?" Emma's phone buzzed again. With trembling fingers, she checked the message. "Should have minded your own business, Emma. Now they all pay for your mistakes." The realization hit her like a physical blow. This wasn't random violence, this was targeted. Someone had been watching her, waiting for the perfect moment when she'd be vulnerable and surrounded by potential witnesses. The timing wasn't coincidental, it was calculated. "Luna knew," Emma whispered, understanding flooding through her. "She's been protecting me from this." Luna's low growl rumbled through her chest as she fixed her attention on a specific section of forest. Without warning, the wolf hybrid bolted from their cover, moving with the fluid speed of her wild ancestors. She disappeared into the undergrowth before anyone could react. "No!" Emma screamed, but Luna was already gone. Detective Morrison tried to grab Emma's arm as she started to follow. "Ma'am, stay behind cover. We don't know how many shooters—" His words were cut off by the most terrifying sound any of them had ever heard. A human scream of agony echoing from the woods, followed by snarling and thrashing that spoke of violence beyond imagination. The sounds lasted only seconds before an eerie silence fell over the property. Dr. Thompson's face had gone ashen. "Sweet Jesus, what did that animal do?" Minutes crawled by before Luna emerged from the tree line, moving with calm purpose toward the farmhouse. Her muzzle was stained dark, and something that looked suspiciously like fabric hung from her teeth. She carried herself with the satisfied air of a predator who had successfully defended her territory. "Is anyone else out there?" Detective Morrison called out, his weapon still drawn. The silence stretched until Luna reached Emma's side and dropped something at her feet. A wallet, worn leather dark with what Emma tried not to think about. Inside, she found a driver's license that made her blood run cold. Robert Harrison, age 32, with an address in Portland. Emma's ex-husband's younger brother. "Oh, God," Emma breathed, the pieces falling into place with horrible clarity. Robert had always resented Emma, blaming her for the divorce that had exposed his brother's gambling addiction. During the custody hearings, he'd made vague threats about making her pay for destroying his family's reputation. Inspector Crawford radioed for backup and medical assistance while Detective Morrison cautiously approached the tree line with his weapon drawn. What he found 20 yards into the woods made him immediately call for the coroner instead of paramedics. Dr. Thompson sat heavily on the ground, his hands shaking as he stared at Luna. The wolf hybrid had positioned herself between Emma and the forest, alert but calm, as if the violence of minutes before had never happened. "I was wrong," Dr. Thompson whispered, his voice hollow. "Completely wrong about everything." Emma knelt beside Luna, running her hands through the blood-matted fur, checking for injuries. She found none. The blood wasn't Luna's. The wolf hybrid submitted to Emma's examination with patience, occasionally licking Emma's hands with gentle affection that contrasted starkly with the carnage she'd just inflicted. "She saved our lives," Inspector Crawford said quietly, returning from her radio call. "That man had enough ammunition to kill everyone here. Rifle, handgun, extra magazines. This was planned as a massacre." Detective Morrison emerged from the woods looking shaken. "Robert Harrison is deceased, because appears to be massive trauma to the throat and chest cavity. The scene is extensive." Dr. Thompson stood slowly, his entire worldview visibly crumbling. 15 years, he said to no one in particular. 15 years. I've been afraid of the wrong thing. Emma looked up at him questioningly, still stroking Luna's head. "My brother," Dr. Thompson continued, his voice thick with emotion. "The wolves didn't attack our campsite randomly. Robert was there that night. He'd been following our family, stalking my mother after she rejected his advances. The wolves were protecting their den from a human predator. Jimmy died because he tried to help Robert instead of running." The confession hung in the air like a physical weight. Inspector Crawford and Detective Morrison exchanged glances, clearly struggling to process how completely their assumptions had been overturned. "I spent 15 years hating wolves for doing exactly what Luna just did," Dr. Thompson said, tears streaming down his weathered face. "Protecting innocence from a predator." Emma felt Luna's warm breath against her neck as the wolf hybrid pressed close, seeking comfort after the violence. This magnificent creature had killed to protect her, had recognized a threat that none of the humans had taken seriously enough. "The seizure order," Emma said quietly. "What happens now?" Inspector Crawford looked at her clipboard, then deliberately tore the papers in half. "What seizure order? I don't see any evidence of a dangerous exotic animal here. Just a very loyal dog who protected her family from an armed intruder." Detective Morrison nodded slowly. "My report will reflect that Luna acted in defense of human life against an armed assailant. Any animal would have done the same." Dr. Thompson approached Emma hesitantly, his hands still shaking. "I owe you an apology. More than an apology. I owe you my life. If I hadn't been so blinded by my own trauma—" "You were trying to protect people," Emma said gently. "You just didn't understand who needed protecting." The veterinarian knelt down slowly, extending his hand toward Luna. The wolf hybrid studied him for a long moment before accepting his touch, allowing him to scratch behind her ears. "She's magnificent," Dr. Thompson whispered. "And she chose you. That kind of loyalty can't be trained or bought. It's earned through love." As the afternoon wore on and the official investigation concluded, Emma found herself sitting on her grandmother's porch with Luna stretched out beside her. The wolf hybrid seemed to understand that the danger had passed, her body relaxed but still alert to her surroundings. Mrs. Henderson appeared at the property line, moving slowly with her walking cane. Her face was grave as she approached the porch. "Emma, dear," she said quietly, "I owe you an apology. And I owe Luna my thanks. Detective Morrison told me what that man had planned. He'd been watching my house too, waiting for the right moment to hurt you. If Luna hadn't stopped him—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. "Whiskers was getting old anyway," Mrs. Henderson continued, her voice soft with regret. "And I'd rather have a dead cat and live neighbors than the other way around." "Luna was protecting all of us, wasn't she?" Emma nodded, unable to trust her voice. "Your grandmother always said some creatures know things we can't understand," Mrs. Henderson said, settling carefully onto the porch steps. "Luna knew there was a wolf in the woods, but it wasn't her." As the sun began to set over the Oregon countryside, Emma realized that everything had changed. The financial pressures remained. The challenges of caring for Luna were still real, but the essential question had been answered. Luna wasn't a danger to be managed. She was a guardian to be treasured. Dr. Thompson's final words before leaving had been a promise to help Emma obtain proper permits and funding for Luna's care. The state has programs for animals who've performed acts of heroism, he'd explained. Luna more than qualifies. But sitting there in the gathering dusk with Luna's warm weight against her side, Emma understood that the real transformation wasn't in their legal status or financial situation. It was in the recognition that sometimes salvation comes with teeth and claws, and sometimes the most dangerous-looking creatures are actually the safest place in a world full of hidden predators. Luna had been watching over her all along, and Emma finally understood why. 3 days after the shooting, Emma received a phone call that would shatter her newfound sense of security. Dr. Thompson's voice was tight with professional restraint, but she could hear the underlying panic. "Emma, you need to bring Luna in immediately. The blood work from the scene, there's been a development." Emma's stomach clenched. "What kind of development?" "The state lab found something in Robert Harrison's system, a synthetic hormone compound that's been linked to several recent wildlife attacks across the Pacific Northwest. Someone's been using it to trigger aggressive behavior in animals." The implications hit Emma like a sledgehammer. "You're saying someone made Robert dangerous?" "I'm saying Robert might not have been acting entirely of his own free will," Dr. Thompson said carefully. "And if someone's experimenting with behavioral modification compounds, Luna could be next on their list." Emma's blood turned to ice water. She looked across the kitchen where Luna lay sleeping by the fireplace, peaceful and trusting. The idea that someone might try to poison her, to turn her gentle guardian into a weapon, was unbearable. "There's more," Dr. Thompson continued. "The compound was administered through food. Someone's been leaving tainted meat around properties with large dogs throughout Oregon. 3 attacks in the past month, all involving animals that had never shown aggression before." Emma's mind raced back to the past few weeks. Had Luna found anything unusual during her nighttime patrols? Had she eaten anything Emma hadn't provided? "Dr. Thompson, Luna's been acting strangely the past 2 days. She won't eat her regular food, and she keeps pacing near the windows." "Bring her in now," Dr. Thompson said urgently. "If she's been exposed to this compound, we might be able to counteract it, but time is critical." The drive to the veterinary clinic was the longest 20 minutes of Emma's life. Luna sat rigidly in the passenger seat, panting heavily despite the cool weather. Her pupils were dilated, and Emma noticed a tremor in her powerful muscles that spoke of internal struggle. "It's okay, girl," Emma whispered, but her own voice shook with fear. "We're going to figure this out." At the clinic, Dr. Thompson's examination confirmed Emma's worst fears. Luna's heart rate was elevated, her temperature was climbing, and her behavioral responses were becoming increasingly erratic. When Dr. Thompson tried to draw blood, Luna snapped at him, the first time she'd ever shown aggression toward the veterinarian. "The compound is in her system," Dr. Thompson confirmed grimly, studying the preliminary blood work. "Someone left tainted meat on your property within the last 48 hours. Luna's natural caution probably saved her life. She only consumed a small amount." Emma felt tears streaming down her face. "Can you help her?" "We can try," Dr. Thompson said, preparing a syringe with shaking hands. "There's an experimental antidote, but it's never been tested on wolf hybrids. Her unique physiology might react differently than a domestic dog." As Dr. Thompson administered the injection, Luna's body convulsed violently. Her eyes rolled back, and foam appeared at her mouth. Emma watched in horror as the magnificent creature who had saved her life fought for her own. "She's going into cardiac arrest," Dr. Thompson said, grabbing a defibrillator. "Emma, you need to step back." "No!" Emma cried, pushing past him to kneel beside Luna. "I'm not leaving her." Luna's breathing became labored, then stopped entirely. Her amber eyes, which had watched over Emma for months, grew glassy and distant. Emma pressed her face against Luna's fur, sobbing uncontrollably. "Please don't leave me," Emma whispered. "You're all I have left." For 30 seconds that felt like 30 years, Luna lay motionless. "Doctor." Thompson worked frantically with medical equipment, but his expression grew more hopeless with each passing moment. Then, impossibly, Luna's chest rose with a shallow breath. Her eyes flickered open, unfocused but alive. Dr. Thompson's hands flew over his instruments, monitoring vital signs that gradually stabilized. Luna's breathing deepened, became more regular, and slowly she lifted her head to look at Emma. "The antidote worked," Dr. Thompson breathed, disbelief coloring his voice. "I've never seen anything like it. Her constitution is incredible." Emma buried her face in Luna's neck, overwhelmed with relief and gratitude. But as Luna struggled to sit up, Emma noticed something that made her heart sink. The wolf hybrid's movements were slow, uncoordinated. Her left rear leg dragged uselessly, and her once sharp eyes seemed clouded with confusion. "The neurological damage appears to be permanent," Dr. Thompson said gently. "The compound attacked her nervous system. She'll recover, but she may never be the same Luna you knew." Over the following days, Emma watched her guardian struggle with simple tasks that had once been effortless. Luna couldn't climb stairs, stumbled frequently, and sometimes stared blankly at Emma as if trying to remember who she was. The magnificent predator who had moved with deadly grace was now a confused, disabled animal dependent on Emma's constant care. The financial implications were staggering. Luna required round-the-clock nursing, expensive medications, and specialized equipment. Emma's savings were already exhausted, and the mounting veterinary bills pushed her toward bankruptcy. Mrs. Henderson visited daily, bringing soup and increasingly worried observations. "Dear, you're killing yourself trying to care for her. Maybe it's time to consider—" "No," Emma cut her off firmly. "Luna saved my life. I won't abandon her now." But privately, Emma was breaking. She slept on the floor beside Luna's bed, waking every few hours to help her drink water or change her position. Her freelance work had completely stopped. She couldn't focus on design projects when Luna needed constant attention. The person responsible for the poisoning remained at large. Detective Morrison had launched a full investigation, but the trail led nowhere. Someone with sophisticated knowledge of animal behavior and chemistry was still out there, possibly planning more attacks. Emma's grandmother's voice echoed in her memory during the darkest moments. "Sometimes, loving someone means making the hard choice, not the easy one." The hardest moment came on a rainy Thursday morning when Luna fell, trying to reach her water bowl. Emma found her lying on the kitchen floor, whimpering in pain and confusion, unable to understand why her body wouldn't obey her commands. Dr. Thompson's words haunted Emma as she held Luna close. "The kindest thing isn't always keeping them alive. And sometimes it's letting them go with dignity." Emma stared into Luna's clouded eyes and saw flickers of the intelligence that had once saved her life. Luna was still in there, trapped in a failing body, dependent on Emma for everything. "I don't know what to do, Rose," Emma whispered to her grandmother's memory. "How do I choose between love and mercy?" Luna stirred in her arms, and for a moment her eyes cleared. She looked directly at Emma with perfect recognition and pressed her muzzle against Emma's cheek. the same gesture of trust and affection she'd shown the day Emma rescued her from the storm. In that moment, Emma understood. Luna wasn't asking to be saved from death. She was asking to be saved from this half-life that diminished everything she had been. The decision tore Emma apart, but she knew it was the right one. She called Dr. Thompson and scheduled the appointment she'd been dreading. But as Emma hung up the phone, Luna struggled to her feet and walked, slowly, unsteadily, but deliberately, to the front door. Her nose pressed against the glass, and her body language changed subtly, becoming alert despite her disabilities. A car was pulling into the driveway. Detective Morrison stepped out, his expression grim, but carrying what looked like good news. "Emma," he called out, "we found him. The person who's been poisoning animals across the state. And you're not going to believe who it is." Luna's tail wagged weakly, as if she somehow understood that justice was finally coming for the monster who had tried to destroy them both. For the first time in days, Emma felt a spark of hope. Maybe this wasn't the end of their story after all. Maybe it was the beginning of their fight back. Detective Morrison's revelation struck Emma like lightning. The man responsible for Luna's poisoning wasn't a stranger. It was Dr. Vincent Carraway, a respected animal behaviorist from Portland State University who had been conducting illegal experiments on wildlife for the past 18 months. Dr. Carraway has been testing synthetic compounds designed to increase aggression in predator species, Morrison explained, settling into Emma's kitchen chair while Luna lay nearby, her breathing labored but her eyes alert. He believed he could create the perfect guard animals by chemically enhancing their protective instincts. Emma's hands trembled as she processed this information. But why target Luna? Why target any of these animals? According to his research notes, which we seized during the raid, Dr. Carraway was specifically seeking wolf hybrids for his experiments. He believed their natural intelligence combined with enhanced aggression would create the ultimate protection animal. Morrison's voice carried disgust. Your Luna was supposed to be his crown jewel. The detective pulled out a thick folder of photographs and documents. He'd been watching your property for months, Emma. These surveillance photos go back to when Luna was just a puppy. He knew exactly what she was from the beginning. Emma flipped through the photos with growing horror. Image after image showed Luna playing in the yard, walking with Emma, even sleeping on the porch. The invasion of privacy was nauseating, but worse was the clinical detachment in the documentation. Luna had been reduced to a test subject in someone's twisted research. The tainted meat he left on your property contained a modified version of his compound, Morrison continued. If Luna had consumed a full dose, she would have become violently aggressive toward everything except you. Carraway's plan was to let the transformation occur, then approach you as a concerned expert, offering to help control your dangerous animal. Emma's blood ran cold. He was going to offer to take her away. Exactly. Under the guise of rehabilitation, he would have had unlimited access to study her reactions to various chemical cocktails. The other animals we found in his lab. Morrison trailed off, shaking his head. Let's just say Luna was lucky to survive even a partial dose. Dr. Thompson arrived as Morrison was finishing his explanation, his face grave but carrying a medical bag that suggested hope. I've been collaborating with veterinary neurologists at Oregon State, he said without preamble. There's an experimental treatment that might help reverse some of Luna's neurological damage. Emma's heart leaped. What kind of treatment? Stem cell therapy combined with intensive physical rehabilitation, Dr. Thompson explained, kneeling beside Luna to examine her. It's expensive and there's no guarantee of success, but Luna's youth and overall health give her better odds than most patients. The cost estimate made Emma's vision blur. $40,000 for the initial treatment series, with no insurance coverage for experimental procedures on exotic animals. Even if she sold everything she owned, including the farmhouse, she couldn't afford half that amount. "There's more," Morrison said, pulling out another set of documents. Dr. Carraway had been receiving funding from a private military contractor interested in developing enhanced guard animals for overseas operations. The FBI is treating this as a federal case now, which means there's a victim compensation fund available. Emma stared at the paperwork through tears she hadn't realized were falling. "How much compensation?" "Enough to cover Luna's treatment and provide for her long-term care," Morrison said gently. Dr. Carraway documented every aspect of his research, including projected costs for animal rehabilitation. In a twisted way, his thoroughness is going to save Luna's life. Dr. Thompson was already making phone calls to arrange Luna's transfer to the specialized treatment facility. As he spoke with neurological specialists, Emma sat on the floor beside her injured guardian, stroking the thick fur that had once been so perfectly groomed. "You hear that, girl?" Emma whispered. "We're going to fight this. You saved my life, and now I'm going to save yours." Luna's tail moved in what might have been a wag, and her amber eyes focused on Emma's face with unmistakable recognition. Whatever damage the poison had caused, Luna's spirit remained intact. The next few weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of medical appointments, legal proceedings, and carefully monitored rehabilitation sessions. Luna's treatment began with daily injections of stem cells harvested from her own tissue, followed by hours of physical therapy designed to retrain her nervous system. Emma moved temporarily to Portland to be near the treatment facility, sleeping in a small apartment provided by the Victim Compensation Program. Every morning she arrived at the veterinary hospital to find Luna waiting for her, always managing to lift her head when Emma entered the room. The progress was slow but undeniable. After 2 weeks, Luna could stand without assistance. After 4 weeks, she took her first unsteady steps. By the 6th week, she was walking short distances with only minor coordination issues. Dr. Thompson monitored every aspect of Luna's recovery with the dedication of someone seeking redemption for his earlier prejudices. "Her brain is rewiring itself," he explained to Emma during one of their weekly consultations. "Wolf hybrids have remarkable neuroplasticity compared to domestic dogs. Her wild heritage is actually helping her heal. But the most remarkable change wasn't physical. It was behavioral. As Luna's strength returned, so did her protective instincts. She began positioning herself between Emma and strangers again, though with less intensity than before. The poison had diminished her aggression while leaving her loyalty intact. Mrs. Henderson visited them in Portland, bringing news from home and homemade cookies that even Luna seemed to enjoy in small pieces. "The whole county's been following Luna's story," she reported. "Channel 8 did a feature about her recovery, and donations have been pouring in from all over the state." Emma was amazed to learn that Luna had become something of a local celebrity. Her story, the wolf hybrid who saved her owner from a stalker and then fought back from poisoning, had captured the public imagination. A GoFundMe campaign had raised an additional $20,000 for her ongoing care. "People understand loyalty," Mrs. Henderson observed, watching Luna carefully navigate the hospital corridors during a supervised walk. "In a world where you can't trust anyone, a creature who'll die protecting you means something special." The legal resolution came faster than expected. Dr. Carraway, faced with overwhelming evidence and federal charges, accepted a plea bargain that included full restitution to his victims and a 10-year prison sentence. His research facility was permanently closed, and the surviving animals were relocated to legitimate sanctuaries. "Justice doesn't always come swift," Detective Morrison told Emma as they finalized the paperwork. "But sometimes it comes complete." The day Luna was cleared to return home marked exactly 3 months since the poisoning. She walked out of the veterinary hospital under her own power, her gait slightly unsteady, but her spirit obviously intact. The drive back to the farmhouse was quiet, both Emma and Luna seeming to understand that they were returning as different versions of themselves. Rose's farmhouse welcomed them with autumn colors, painting the surrounding trees in brilliant oranges and reds. Luna immediately began a careful inspection of the property, reacquainting herself with scents and boundaries. Her movements were more deliberate now, less fluid than before, but no less purposeful. That evening, as Emma sat on the porch watching Luna patrol her territory, she reflected on how completely her life had changed. The broken woman who had rescued a puppy in a storm was gone, replaced by someone stronger, more confident, with a profound understanding of what it meant to fight for the things you love. Luna completed her circuit and returned to the porch, settling beside Emma's chair with a contented sigh. Her amber eyes, clear and alert once more, scanned the tree line one final time before focusing on Emma with unmistakable devotion. "We made it through, didn't we, girl?" Emma said softly. Luna's tail thumped against the wooden boards, once, twice, 3 times. A promise, a celebration, and a quiet acknowledgement that their bond had been tested by fire and emerged stronger than ever. Tomorrow would bring new challenges. But tonight they were home, they were safe, and they were together. Sometimes, Emma realized, that was enough to build a whole new life upon. 6 months later, Emma stood in the morning sunlight watching Luna teach 3 rescued puppies how to patrol the property boundaries. The wolf hybrid moved with quiet authority, her gait still slightly uneven, but her spirit completely restored. What had started as one woman's desperate attempt to save an abandoned puppy had blossomed into Luna's Haven, a sanctuary for misunderstood animals that needed a second chance. Emma's graphic design business had transformed too, creating educational materials about wildlife conservation and the healing power of human-animal bonds. Mrs. Henderson had become the sanctuary's volunteer coordinator, bringing her decades of wisdom to help other broken souls find purpose in caring for rescued creatures. Dr. Thompson visited weekly, his own healing journey intertwined with Luna's recovery. "You know what your grandmother would say about all this?" Mrs. Henderson observed one evening as they watched Luna settle her adopted pack for the night. Emma smiled, hearing Rose's voice across the years. "Sometimes the thing that saves you isn't what you're looking for. It's what finds you when you're brave enough to love without reservation." Luna padded over and pressed her warm muzzle into Emma's palm, those amber eyes reflecting not just loyalty, but the deep satisfaction of a guardian whose purpose had been fulfilled. They had found their way home to each other and to themselves. What unexpected friendship or loyalty has surprised you in your own life? Have you ever experienced a situation where helping someone else ended up healing your own heart? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how love found its way into your life when you needed it most.